A deep silence filled the command center of the Galactic Defense Fleet. The air was thick with tension as Admiral Vorlex stared at the holographic display in front of him. The data was clear. An unidentified warship had entered their sector. It moved slowly, deliberately, without any communication or response to standard hailing signals. "Are we sure this is not a malfunction?" one of the officers asked, his voice uneasy. The sensor technician shook his head. "No, sir. This is real. The ship is massive, larger than any known vessel in our database." And he hesitated, looking at the screen again. "It's human." A heavy silence followed those words. "That's impossible," Admiral Vorlex said, his mandibles clicking together. "Humans don't have warships of this size. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. We have controlled their expansion for decades. This must be a mistake." But the data did not lie. The ship's structure was unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever seen, but its core energy signature matched that of human technology. The humans, those fragile creatures from a single planet, had sent something into deep space, and no one knew what it was. "Send a reconnaissance drone," Vorlex ordered. "We need visuals." The drone launched into the void, approaching the silent warship. The closer it got, the more unsettling the readings became. The ship had no energy fluctuations, no active shielding, no visible weapons. It was just there, drifting in space like a ghost. The drone transmitted the first images. The hull was smooth, dark, without markings. There were no windows, no visible thrusters, nothing that indicated a conventional design. It was unnatural, as if it had not been built, but shaped from a single massive structure. "How does it move without propulsion?" someone asked. No one had an answer. Then, without warning, the drone's signal cut off. The command center filled with alarm chimes. The feed was gone. No explosion, no trace of destruction. 1 second the drone was there. The next, nothing. "Did they attack?" Admiral Vorlex asked, his claws tightening. The sensor technician checked the logs. No weapon discharge detected. No energy spike. It just disappeared. Another silence fell over the room. "Admiral," a communications officer spoke up, his voice shaking. "Should we attempt another drone?" Vorlex hesitated. Something about this warship felt wrong. It was not behaving like an enemy vessel, but it wasn't friendly either. It simply existed, completely unbothered by their presence. "Send a message to the Council," Vorlex ordered. "They need to know about this immediately." As the message was sent, the warship continued its slow movement through space. Unstoppable, silent, unknown. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council felt something they had not experienced in a long time. Fear. The Galactic Council received the report within minutes. The moment the word human was mentioned, the chamber erupted into chaos. "Impossible." High Chancellor Velox slammed his fist on the table. "Humans are incapable of such technology. They are primitive. We have monitored their progress for centuries. There is no way they built something of this magnitude." The holographic image of the unknown warship hovered in the center of the chamber. It was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Its smooth, featureless hull made it seem like a relic from an ancient civilization, not a human construct. It had no visible weapons, no thrusters, no markings of any kind. And yet, it moved, silent and unstoppable. "They ignored all hails," Admiral Vorlex continued. "We sent a reconnaissance drone. It vanished without a trace. No explosion, no energy signature. Just gone." The room fell into an uneasy silence. "Are we certain this is of human origin?" one of the counselors asked, his voice cautious. "The core energy signature is human," Vorlex confirmed. "It matches their technology. But the design does not. This is something new, something we have never seen before." The counselors exchanged nervous glances. For centuries, the Galactic Council had maintained control over humanity. Their expansion was limited, their technology carefully observed. Their fleets kept weak on purpose. But now, a human warship had appeared, one they had no knowledge of, one that defied all expectations. "Where is the ship heading?" Chancellor Veloc asked. "It is on a direct course toward the outer defense perimeter," Vorlex replied. "At its current speed, it will reach our first line of defense within 2 days." "Then we stop it," Veloc declared. "Deploy a fleet. This ship must be intercepted before it reaches our borders." "But what if it does not attack?" another counselor questioned. Veloc's eyes narrowed. "Then we make it attack. We cannot allow a human warship, an unknown human warship, to wander freely through our territory. We will demand its surrender." Admiral Vorlex hesitated for the briefest moment. He had seen the scans, studied the strange, unnatural readings. Something about this warship felt wrong. But orders were orders. "It will be done," he said. As the council continued their discussion, a fleet of warships mobilized. Hundreds of vessels armed with the most advanced weaponry known to the galaxy moved into position, forming an impenetrable blockade along the warship's path. They believed they were ready. They had no idea what they were about to face. The fleet moved into position, forming an impenetrable wall of warships across the unknown vessel's path. Hundreds of battlecruisers, armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, hovered in the darkness of space. Their weapons locked on target, shields at full strength, engines burning bright. The blockade was impossible to breach. No single ship, no matter how advanced, could stand against such firepower. Admiral Vorlex watched from the bridge of his flagship. The warship still had not responded. It moved forward, slow and steady, without any sign of aggression. It was as if it did not see the blockade at all, as if it did not care. That was what unsettled him the most. Any other species would have reacted by now, either with fear, communication, or an attempt to flee. But this ship did nothing. A warning transmission was sent. No response. Another was sent, this time with an ultimatum: stop immediately or be fired upon. Silence. It was not jamming their signals, not disrupting communications. It simply ignored them. The unknown warship continued forward, its dark hull reflecting the light of distant stars. The order was given. The first wave of attacks began. Energy cannons, plasma missiles, ion disruptors. Every weapon in the fleet was unleashed upon the vessel. The firepower was overwhelming. Explosions erupted around the warship, engulfing it in a cloud of fire and debris. The display screens flashed with data, impact reports confirming direct hits. The fleet officers watched as the unknown ship disappeared within the destruction. For a moment, there was silence. Then the fire cleared. The warship remained untouched. There was no damage, no scorch marks, no weakened shields, nothing. The fleet's most powerful weapons had done absolutely nothing. It continued forward at the same steady pace, unharmed, unbothered, unstoppable. Admiral Vorlex felt cold dread settle in his chest. He had fought countless battles, crushed entire civilizations, wiped out fleets with ease. Never had he seen something like this. The ship did not retaliate, did not acknowledge the attack, did not react in any way. It simply existed, as if the weapons of the galaxy's greatest fleet were beneath its notice. Panic spread among the fleet. Officers demanded explanations. Scientists scrambled to analyze the readings. Weapons were recharged, new attack strategies discussed. None of it mattered. The warship kept moving, completely indifferent to the chaos around it. The blockade was useless. The fleet was powerless. The galaxy's greatest military force had just encountered something beyond its understanding, and for the first time, they realized the terrible truth. They were not in control anymore. The fleet was in chaos. Officers shouted over each other, scrambling for answers. The warship had taken every hit without a scratch, without even slowing down. It was impossible, unthinkable. No shields, no countermeasures, nothing. Yet their most powerful weapons had done absolutely nothing. Admiral Vorlex stared at the screen, his claws gripping the console. The warship continued forward, silent and undeterred, as if the fleet did not exist. The blockade was supposed to be impenetrable. It was supposed to stop anything. And yet this single ship moved through them like they were nothing more than dust in space. A second wave of attacks was launched. More firepower than entire planetary sieges rained down upon the vessel. It was enough to destroy a moon, enough to turn an entire fleet into rubble. But when the energy dissipated, the warship remained unmoved. The fleet began to retreat, panic taking over discipline. They had faced countless enemies before, but this was different. This was not an enemy engaging in battle. It was not even an enemy fighting back. It simply advanced, indifferent, unstoppable. The communications channel erupted with desperate voices. Some called for another attack. Others demanded immediate withdrawal. A few even suggested surrender, though no one knew how to surrender to something that did not acknowledge them. "Admiral," a voice came through, one of his officers, trembling. "It's scanning us." Vorlex's blood ran cold. For the first time, the warship acted. A single pulse of energy spread outward, invisible to the eye, but detected by every sensor in the fleet. It was not an attack. It was not a weapon. It was something worse. It was analyzing them. Every ship, every system, every single one of them was being studied, examined as if they were specimens under a microscope. A deep, unsettling feeling spread through the fleet. They were the most powerful military force in the galaxy. And yet, at this moment, they felt small. Then, the warship finally responded. A single message was transmitted across all channels. No encryption, no complex code, just a simple message that sent a wave of terror through every officer who read it. "We see you." Nothing more. Nothing less. But those words held a weight that crushed the courage of even the bravest commanders. Because for the first time, the galaxy realized the terrifying truth. The warship had been ignoring them because it did not consider them a threat. Admiral Vorlex stood frozen, the message burning in his mind. "We see you." The warship had finally acknowledged their presence, not with an attack, not with demands, but with those three simple words. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement. The fleet officers around him were in a frenzy. Some demanded immediate retreat. Others insisted they press forward, unleash everything they had. But Vorlex knew better. He had led countless battles, fought ruthless enemies, crushed entire rebellions. He knew when he was facing something beyond his understanding. The warship continued moving. No aggression, no retaliation, just the same steady path. It wasn't a battleship. It wasn't even behaving like a war machine. It was something else, something watching. "Admiral, our systems," one of his engineers stammered. "Something is happening." The data streams flashed wildly. Readings spiked. Then, one by one, every ship in the blockade lost control. Engines flickered, weapons powered down, shields collapsed. It was as if an invisible force had reached into their systems and simply switched them off. Panic exploded. Crews fought desperately to regain control. Commands were issued, emergency protocols activated, but nothing worked. The fleet was paralyzed. Vorlex gritted his teeth. What did it do? We don't know." The engineers scrambled, their screens flashing error codes never seen before. "It's not a hack. It's not an EMP. It's like the ships forgot how to function." The warship drifted past them, completely undisturbed. It did not fire a single shot. It did not even acknowledge their struggle. And then, as if to remind them how powerless they were, the warship reactivated their systems. One by one, the fleet came back online. Shields reformed. Weapons flickered to life. Engines roared back into motion. The blockade was restored, but they all knew it meant nothing. The warship could have destroyed them. It could have shut them down forever. It could have done anything. But it didn't. Instead, it let them live. A shudder passed through the fleet. This wasn't war. This wasn't a battle. This was a lesson. And the worst part, humanity had just started teaching. Silence filled the bridge. Every officer, every crew member, every soldier in the fleet understood one thing. They were alive because the warship allowed it. Admiral Vorlex felt something he had never experienced before. Not fear, not anger. Something deeper. Insignificance. He had commanded forces that brought entire civilizations to their knees. But now, he stood before something that had rendered his fleet powerless without even attacking. The warship moved forward, still at the same steady pace. It did not fire, did not threaten, did not demand. It simply existed. And in doing so, it shattered everything the galaxy believed about power. "Admiral," an officer whispered, voice trembling, "do we pursue?" Pursue. The thought was laughable. The blockade had failed. Their weapons had failed. Their technology had failed. The warship had turned them off like a child flipping a switch. What would pursuit accomplish? Vorlex clenched his jaw. No. The officers turned to him in disbelief. They had been trained to fight, to dominate, to enforce control over the galaxy. Now, they were being told to do nothing. A transmission came through, not from the warship, from the High Council. They had been watching. They had seen everything. The message was brief. Stand down. Do not engage. Return to station immediately. For the first time in his career, Admiral Vorlex was ordered to retreat without a battle. His claws dug into the console as he gave the order. The mighty fleet, the greatest armada in the galaxy, turned away. It was not a retreat from war. It was a retreat from something far worse, an enemy they could not fight. As the fleet moved away, Vorlex took one last look at the warship. No insignia, no markings, no transmissions, just that simple, unstoppable presence. And then, a final message appeared on their screens. No source, no trace. You were warned. Vorlex's blood ran cold. This wasn't just about the fleet. This wasn't just about the warship. This was the beginning of something far greater. The fleet drifted in silence. No one spoke. No one dared. Every officer, every soldier, every commander had seen the message flash across their screens. You were warned. Admiral Vorlex sat frozen, staring at the warship as it disappeared into the void. It never fired a shot, never demanded anything. And yet it had crushed them, not with force, but with something far worse, power beyond their comprehension. The High Council's orders were clear. Stand down. Do not engage. Return to station. They were words meant to mask fear as strategy. But Vorlex knew the truth. This war was already lost before it even began. The crew moved stiffly, shaken. Some officers whispered theories. Others struggled to process what had happened. But no one questioned the retreat. How could they? They weren't retreating from a warship. They were retreating from a warning. As the fleet turned away, sensors caught something else. Other ships, watching from the shadows. Dozens of species, some allies, some enemies. All had seen what had happened. All had seen humanity's message. It was no longer just about a warship. It was no longer about a battle. The entire galaxy now knew the truth. They had laughed at humanity, mocked them, believed them weak. Now they understood. You do not anger humanity. Because if this was their warning, then the galaxy did not want to see what came next.